Well, since this is the last news show of the season, we thought we'd do a year in review at Oklahoma Gardening. And this year has been a very fun year, and this is one of the gardens that's performed beautifully for us in the climbing and trailing garden. And right now, it looks pretty bare. This is how it started out this season. However, as the summer progressed, it became filled with vines, and you'll be happy to know that we're going to be keeping this garden for next year. So we'll be bringing you some more vines and trailing plants that you could grow in your own garden. So be sure to look for this again next year. Well, some other gardens that we had that did very well for us this year were the variegated garden and also the foliage and texture garden. And these two focus not on flowers, but on the foliage. And we found out with this very hot summer that we had that these were good gardens to have because as the weather started to heat up, plants started to quit blooming. However, if they had interesting foliage, they continued to look good throughout the season. We also had an autumn garden that performed very well for us, and it had color throughout the summer because we used a lot of sun coleus. And so these were good plants to use for color this summer. But we also finished that garden off looking brilliantly with our purple fountain grass, also with the Mexican bush sage, and our Texas firebush. They were beautiful plants to put in our fall garden. The blue garden added a cool look to our garden area, and we had a lot of plants with a very nice blue color. Well, one of my favorite gardens this season was the lemon garden. It was filled with plants with lemon in the name and also a wonderful lemon scent. And we also took a look at a lot of culinary herbs as part of our kitchen garden. The kitchen garden was filled with plants that we used in the kitchen, not only the vegetables that we planted, but also edible flowers and herbs. And this was a very fun garden to see as it progressed through the season. Well, since we have so many kids come to visit the Oklahoma Gardening Studio Gardens, we always have a children's garden. And this year, we pretty much took a safari and included plants with animal names such as cattails, elephant ears, and duck's foot coleus. And this was a fun garden to play in for both kids and for the adults. Well, these were just a few of our theme gardens this year, and we also did a lot of traveling this year. We took a trip to Daryl Merrill's to visit with him about garlic, and we also saw 3 of our former hosts' gardens and what they were doing now, and this was a lot of fun this year. Well, that's what we've done this year, and we're excited about planning what we're going to bring you next year. And I thought I'd let you know that some of our theme gardens for next year are going to be the Silver Garden and also the Moon Garden. These will be great gardens for some of those nighttime plantings if you like to enjoy your gardens after the sun goes down. We'll also be having a red, orange, and yellow garden, and we'll look at plants in that color spectrum. We'll have a daisy garden, which will be featuring plants in the Asteraceae or Compositae family. Those are the daisy family, and that is one of the largest plant families there is. So there's a big selection of plants to go in that garden. We'll also be bringing you the Good For You vegetable garden next year, and we'll be coupling that with some great cooking tips from Barbara Brown, who will be telling us just how nutritious those vegetables are for us. Now, if you don't know what to do with some of that junk you've got sitting around, you'll want to come and visit us next year because we're going to have our junk garden or recycled garden. So all of those old chairs, garden gates, ladders, anything like that that you don't know what to do with, we're going to show you how you can use those in your garden. We'll also have a scented garden, and one of our highlights next year is going to be the addition of a children's educational garden. This is going to be a permanent children's garden that we're installing here at the Oklahoma Gardening Studio Gardens. And this is part of a service learning grant that we received. And we showed you a little bit of that in the past, some of the research that's going into that. And next season, we'll actually be putting that garden in out here. Well, another permanent garden that we're going to be putting in is a permanent sun perennial garden. So we'll be able to walk you through the steps of establishing a permanent perennial garden, which is also a very exciting event that we'll be bringing you next year.
We hope you've enjoyed this classic from the Oklahoma Gardening Vault. Remember, even though these tips and techniques are timeless, there's always something new to learn in the world of gardening. By subscribing to both Oklahoma Gardening and OK Gardening Classics, you'll have access to a wealth of gardening knowledge, both classic and contemporary.